I mean, there's ready and there's born ready. You know, I think
Ready and born ready.
and born ready. You know?
I should really stop looking at the monitor. I should look into the camera. Right?
I don't know. It looks like you're heading in the right direction.
I'm trying.
Me, I don't know who to look at. You, Bones, the camera. I'm all over the place.
I look like my eyes are closed. Like I got heavy eyelids.
You're in
All
deep
right.
thought. All right, let's have a countdown.
All right. What
5.
Did you say?
Let's have a countdown.
Oh,
What'd you think I said?
I heard another C word. That.
Content. Wow. No, I would never say that. That's wrong. That's wrong.
We're gonna have to beat that one out.
Yeah, that was.
You want to start it over?
Let's have a countdown.
That's.
I didn't
what I thought you
pronunciate.
said.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
come on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to the Jersey Alchemist, and I'm your host, Dr. John Gerard Gallucci.
And I'm Philip D'Angelo. What's up, big
going
guy?
on there, brother?
Everything is good. Another day. Here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Loving life. I mean, life is tough. It's a grind, but it's good. It's good.
Good.
What did we discuss that one episode? Mindset. Right? Mindset.
Yeah.
So the mindset is positive, and if an obstacle gets in your way, you just
Need
step.
the power of positive thinking.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Cheerio. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Step right over that obstacle, go around it, and your day's going to be better.
I agree with that.
Absolutely. And you know what helps, at least with me, to start the day off good, is some form of exercise. This workout, a jog. Well, I'm not a jogger, but
Does
a workout.
brushing your teeth count?
No. But I think somebody. Well, you worked out this weekend, right?
Yesterday.
Okay.
I try to work out 4 days a week. If it happens 3 times a week, I'm not unhappy. If it all of a sudden it turns out to be once or twice, I'm not happy. When you're in your 60s and a week goes by, you feel like you haven't worked out for 6 months.
John, I have to tell you, I have a problem with food consumption. I know that's pretty obvious. I love to consume food.
You do?
Yes. But the only thing that's ever saved me was I always went to the gym, 4 or 5, 3. I always went. Somehow, I always made it. And that kind of saved me so far as we get older.
Speaking of food consumption,
Yes.
what's your preferred fuel?
There is none. I love all of it.
Yeah.
I could go Italian. I could go Chinese. I can go to Thai food.
What's your favorite Chinese item on a menu?
I love them all. I mean, there's...
Pick an item.
Oh, gosh. Well, I've been doing beef and broccoli lately. It's got that heavy sauce, but I'm just like a beef and broccoli, little protein. We used to go to Chinatown, right? Remember those days?
Sure.
The restaurant we go to is
Wow.
it's still there in Manhattan. It's one of the oldest restaurants to make it. And you go down those stairs.
Oh, yeah.
At probably, we used to go at 2 in the morning. Used to go down those stairs, and, there was a whole world
And there was a line.
and a line.
Right.
There was a whole
and
world.
everybody in that line was high, coked out of their minds, or drunk.
Drunk, yeah. That's the amazing thing about Manhattan, that I feel bad what's going on with Manhattan now with all the crime wave and the way it got shut down. The city got shut down because of COVID. There's a piece of everything you need in Manhattan. If you love Russian food, what a poor choice for Russian food. But if you like German food, there's a restaurant, at least 1 or 2 places that is strictly all German, Italian, Irish, Polish. You can get it all in Manhattan. There truly is no other city like it in the world.
I love Russian food.
Yeah.
A very dear friend of mine. They're Russian, former Soviets.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gentleman from your book.
Oh, yes.
Correct.
Gentleman from my book.
Is that the same guy?
Same guy.
Okay.
Yeah. I think 3 gold medals in ice hockey, 1 silver. That we
No.
won't talk about because they still do not accept that.
Was he on that team?
No. Yeah,
Wow,
big time. As a matter of
wow.
fact, his coach fingered him for the tying goal.
Wow.
Yeah, which was kind of bullshit, ridiculous. How about fingering you, the coach, because he pulled Tretiak, the world's greatest goalie?
Why would you do that?
Right. Because they didn't respect the schoolboys
That's
from
right.
the United States, the schoolboys.
So if your friend sees Michael Ruzioni the USA captain, there's going to be a problem years later? No?
No. I don't think so. No, as a matter of fact, they sent me photos from Moscow because he was one of the KHL coaches out of Moscow, and going back a couple of years, and they had a big reunion
Oh, wow.
on the ice, and the venue was it was like a winter wonderland, and they ended up in a restaurant with these big glass windows overlooking the ice, and I guess they must have been, windows that could take a hockey puck. And who was he sitting with? Phil Espo, Bobby Orr. He was friends with all of those guys.
Wow.
I'm getting goosebumps. But the point of the story was, I love Russian food, and when we used to get together for birthdays and whatnot, you better bring your liver, and you better bring an extra liver, because, the secret that Russians have for drinking as much as they do,
Practice.
vodka. Oh, it's a lot of practice, but it's tons and tons of food. And his wife, my God, what a good. They're all good cooks, all great cooks. Yeah.
What's a Russian dish? I mean, do you remember any?
Yeah, lots of fishes and
Fish.
I can't remember the actual Russian word
Yeah.
for the potato dumplings that she used to make, but they were like, they were to die for. They were so fabulous.
John, talk about
A lot of meat,
Meat?
fish, potato, yeah.
It's right up my alley. Talk about Manhattan being like there's no other city like it. Have you been to other cities in the world? I mean, have you traveled the world, or just United States?
The world.
I mean, I was in Rio de Janeiro one time, and Rio. I mean, they had Italian restaurants. They had a McDonald's. Very poor.
Rio's a big international city, is it not?
Yeah, but it was really poor. I mean, it was really, and I'm going back 30 years. It was really poor back then. I mean, they had gangs of kids that would rob you. A lot of crime.
That I was
Yeah.
aware of, but I'd never been to.
Copacabana Beach.
I spent 8 days in Caracas, Venezuela,
Okay.
back around 1988-ish, and the food and the shopping blew me away.
Wow.
There was this central shopping district I think it was called Chacaito. For those who know that area, yeah, they'll say, "Oh yeah, Chacaito." But I can remember the police coming by on motorcycles and paddy wagons, and they had street vendors like the ones that are all over New York. These people are trying to, feed themselves, and it reminded me of watching a National Geographic show or one of the YouTube videos where lions are, stalking and then rushing the zebra or the gazelle, and they grab one and just tear it to pieces and eat it. These cops would pull up on a paddy wagon, and all the street vendors would run. Sometimes they even left their wares, and that's all they had to their name. But if one of them got caught by the cops, we saw them have the snot beat out of them right in front of us. Billy clubs, fists. I mean, blood and snot flying, and then they throw them into the back of the paddy wagon, and it's like, oh, geez. So one time, and I was there with my ex before we got married, we were walking from point A to point B. We were walking from Chacaito with a few items that we bought back toward the hotel we were staying into, which was the Hotel Campo Alegro. And a motorcycle cop pulled up from behind us, and we were walking on the sidewalk. And he says, "Where are you going?" Heavy, Spanish accent. And we were like, "Well, we're walking back to Hotel Campo Alegro." No, you won't make it. And he gets off his motorcycle, shuts it off, and hails a taxi. And the taxi had two people in the back. So the taxi saw the motorcycle cop going like this, pulled right in, obviously feared for his life.
Sure.
What do you think he did? Guy opens up the back door, pulls the two people that were in the back of the taxi cab out, throws them on the sidewalk, and goes like this to my girlfriend and I, like, "Get in." He goes, "Get in."
Wow.
He goes, "Campo Alegro." And we were like,
Wow.
we didn't want that to happen to them. Where were they going? Now they're going to get the shit beat out of them. It was just an amazing place, but the food, holy shit! One of the best restaurants. There were two restaurants that were completely memorable in Caracas. One was called Il Padron. Il Padron translated to the Godfather. And it was a big, huge Italian restaurant in Caracas. And the exchange rate at the time was 32 bolivars, Simon Bolivar. That was the unit of exchange. That was their dollar, a bolivar. So if you had $1, it translated, and it 32 bolivars. So we ate piles and piles and piles of top-notch food, like you can't believe, for $4. For $4, and then now I'm going to expose the pig I am, the foodie I am. Il Padron was one thing, but the next unbelievable restaurant in the outskirts of Caracas that we had to take a taxi to was a steakhouse, believe it or not, called Lee Hamilton's. And I believe it's still there because I looked it up on the internet a couple of years ago. It's still there. And apparently all sorts of, royalty, the presidents, prime ministers go there and hang out there. You have never had beef until you've had South American beef. That's all I could tell you. But me, I was in my 20s and fearless. I ordered steak El Presidente, 62 ounces. It was on a big, huge, thick, white platter that was meant for a family, and it hung over all of the sides of the platter. And it came with a potato, and I said there, you can hold the potato on. I had a couple of ice-cold mugs of beer, and that steak went down the hatch like I was breathing the air. 62-ounce steak El Presidente. I was there. I ate it. Lots of witnesses. No one was stupid enough to order that but me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've done a couple 48 ounces, but never 62.
Bone in or no bone?
Bone in, yeah. You had no bone?
No bone.
Wow.
This was 62
Impressive.
ounces. Yeah, I felt like, I was eating the whole side of beef.
You were. You were. What about American cities? I mean, what can compare to New York City? I mean, I've been to Pittsburgh. I really like New Orleans, Orlando. I mean, some cities, but New York's I've never been to L.A. Have you been to L.A.?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes,
Is there a comparison to L.A.
Well,
New York?
a lot of the cities in the United States that I spent time in, I didn't spend a lot of time in them, but when I was doing the interview thing, looking for a training spot in pediatric surgery, you would fly in that day before, you'd interview all day that next day, and I never wanted to book a flight out the same day as the interview, because what if it's going on and on and on, or like what happened to me in Chicago at Northwestern. They made me stand there like an idiot in a bunny suit, which is a suit that goes on over your jacket and tie or your contractor's clothing, so it allows you to actually be present in an operating room, because they don't want your street clothes, interfacing with the air and whatnot in the OR. But it was about 105 degrees in that room, right? We're all used to it now. But if you walk into a room like that with a jacket and a tie on, and it was in the winter, and a bunny suit over the top, and a bonnet on your head, and a mask, and I stood there for 6 hours, 6 hours watching the attending complain and bitch at the fellow taking out a tumor. And all I could think to myself was, this is torture. I don't need to be here for 6 hours. I don't care who you are. And what if I had to catch a plane? And I said, hey, I got to go. Take my name off the list. Hey, I got to go. Excuse me, Dr. So-and-so. I'm going to... That's it. He's done. Take him off the list. Oh, yeah. So I didn't spend a lot of time in Chicago, but I had been there with friends. Taken to beautiful, some of the restaurants in Chicago are unbelievable. I spent 2 days in San Francisco, and I liked it, but the thing that really stuck in my craw was that there was no parking anywhere, right? No parking. Where else? Houston, L.A. I remember having to get a haircut in L.A. because I just realized my hair was too long, and I was there for an interview the next day. So I took a little nap in my hotel room on Sunset Boulevard, and I says, geez, I was like, shh, I got to get a haircut. So I walked down Sunset Boulevard, and everybody I saw walking on that boulevard, there must have been a studio there, right? Because everybody looked like they were from outer space. Everybody was in a costume, and I thought, is this what California's all about, or at least LA and the Hollywood area?
That's too funny.
Like nobody's for real out here. And then I looked up the mountain, and I saw houses on stilts, on like lolly columns, and I'm looking at the undersurface of the houses, and I says, wait a minute, isn't this the land of earthquakes?
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I'm like, so I have a good idea. Let's build houses on the mountainside and have the whole thing held up by lolly columns. Sounds like a good idea to me. It's reasonable, right? Yeah. So I duck into this beauty parlor, and I said to a couple of girls cutting the hair, I says, look, I just need a quick trim. Is it okay? Yeah, sit down and wait. All right. I wait for a half an hour. Where are you from? Jersey, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I just trim it up a little bit. And I wasn't watching her because there was the TV on, and I was going to watch the TV. Okay, thanks. $35. Now, in 1994, $35 was a lot of money for a haircut. When I got back to my hotel room, I was twice as pissed off because I spent $35 and she only cut the hair on half of my head. Literally. I don't know whether she got bored or she thought I was in that parade of characters outside. Everybody was either from the man from Moon or the man from Mars or something. So I went like this, and one side was like this, and the other was like... so I went back. I says, come on. I says, you want to get artsy-fartsy. You can't just cut the hair on half of my head. That's just what I remember from being in L.A.
Wow, L.A., that's amazing. I was, being that we're in Jersey, I was in Jersey City the other day. What a difference they're making with Jersey City. Building skyscrapers, condos.
Skyscrapers, really?
Oh, yeah. They call it the Gold Coast. It's on this side of the Hudson. They want to pull everybody from Manhattan because it's a little dangerous and way too expensive, and they want to pull everybody to Jersey. I was in a hotel there, and it was really exquisite. It really was nice, yeah.
So they're using the Hudson River as a barrier.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Let's keep safe from the heathens.
Yeah, that's it. Now, when you were practicing as a pediatric surgeon, John, did most of your patients come from Jersey, or were they spread out throughout the country?
Most from Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there were a bunch of people. There were crossovers from New York.
New York.
Yeah, and look, ped surgery, Jersey's a tough gig. You really got to have your wits about you, and you have to have a real strong fortitude to be a ped surgeon in New Jersey. Why? Well, because you're in between Philly, and Philly's got one of the top name brand children's hospitals in the world, which is CHOP, CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and they're stellar. Not always, but they're stellar, and they have that rep. And what's on the other side, right? So if you're west of the Delaware, it's Philly. If you're east of the Hudson, it's Manhattan, and Manhattan's got a bunch of top-notch institutions. Yeah, that's just the way it is. So, if you have a 2-year-old with a hernia and you demand to go down to Philly to have somebody from CHOP fix your kid's hernia, you know what you do? You say, go, and don't come back. And when there's a complication, and it's Sunday night at 11 o'clock, get in your car and go back to the ER at CHOP. Don't stop in where I am if I didn't do your surgery. Now that sounds a little hard, but you know something?
But that's all doctors.
Well, but you know what? Look, God bless the people in Manhattan and New York City, and God bless the Philadelphia ped surgeons. That's all great stuff. We need you. They're known as quaternary referral centers. The number four, quaternary, because that's as high as it goes. So it doesn't get higher than those centers. So if you have a problem that's really off the beaten path, you're going to go to a quaternary referral center, right? But 95% or more of the stuff that they threw at me and my associate, from big malignant tumors to all sorts of congenital anomalies that had to be fixed, otherwise the baby would die expediently, we took care of that. We did, which was why it was a bit annoying if people wanted to go all the way down either into Manhattan or down to Philly for a routine hernia. But when there was a complication, oh, New Jersey was just good. It was good. Okay, yeah. So you get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, this mom wants you in this ER right now looking at this. Oh, really? And guess what? Very often we had to.
Yeah, sure, there's a
Part of
child.
the gig.
Yeah.
Part of the gig.
Wow, that's amazing. John, you touched on something. I mean, being that Manhattan, Jersey, chops. I mean, there's also a personal side, like you said, and a professional side. But what about the business side of it? Is there like a business competition? Are there? And I have no idea. I'm just asking a question. Is there like numbers to look at? Like, wow, our numbers are up, and
Well, I'm
or
gonna.
they're
Okay,
down.
yeah, I'm just gonna jump right on that one. In all of New Jersey, as far as I know, and we kind of all knew each other, right? When I came out of my training, there were 668 pediatric surgeons that were working actively in North America. 668. That's when I came out of my training back in 98. Okay. And I think I said these before as a point of relativity that just in New Jersey alone, when I came out, there were 77,000 attorneys practicing in New Jersey. And there were 30,000 doctors of all kinds in New Jersey practicing, and there were a dozen ped surgeons in New Jersey. There were 83 in Manhattan, but a dozen in Jersey. Out of that dozen in New Jersey, as far as I know, there was only one guy, and I knew him pretty well, who was private. In other words, he owned the building that his offices were in. He was the employer for the staff, that kind of thing. And he was a master business person. He was. Everybody else was full-time faculty because you really weren't going to make it. You just weren't going to make it. And that's basically because of the insurance companies. Now, a bunch of the guys that I knew from Jersey in years previous to me knowing them, 20, 25 years, when they were the young ones coming out, they had private businesses and they made a lot of money. There was no such thing back then as managed care. So if they charged, I don't know, $1,000 for a hernia repair, they got paid $1,000. The interesting thing is, here's why you really can't make it as a private ped surgeon in New Jersey now. Let's say you're going to do something like a circumcision. Yeah, because that was certainly, within the purview of things that we did. We did really big, ugly, scary cases, and then we did things like circumcisions. When I had first gotten to my last gig, which was right around 2003, I wanted to see all the numbers, just like you're talking about, to be responsible to the institution because I was full-time faculty. They were cutting me a paycheck. And my division got paid $27 to perform a circumcision. But the Department of Anesthesia, to put the kid under or to sedate the kid, got $800. So there was no equity. There was no fairness in any of that. And guess what? Doing a circumcision surgically, I've done many, 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 more than I'd like to admit. It's basically a thankless job. It just is.
Wow. John, tell me, you touched on when you first went to Jersey and you first started there. What was it like the first time solo, where you were the head surgeon in a room? What was that like? Where it was no. I mean, you always had an assistant, but when there was nobody with more experience than you, and they said, "All right, John, this is it. Go for it."
It really depended on what it was. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we touched upon this in a previous episode where, by that time, look, I spent 6 years as a general surgery resident in a major trauma center, and the trauma was just a part of it.
Yeah.
You know, we were doing open heart and ped surgery and colorectal and plastics and cracking skulls with neurosurgery and the trauma surgery. So 6 years of that, of taking either every night or every other night call. The only way to really gain acumen in anything like that is to basically immerse yourself in it, and you have to have it. You have to be dunked and soaked and marinated in it. I mean, literally. And then after that, it was 2 years of that for ped surgery for me up in Montreal at McGill. And we were held to not living more than 10 minutes away from the hospital because we were the trauma team. We were the liver transplant, kidney transplant, pancreas transplant team.
Wow.
We were every team. And by the way, I was a little bit interested to know that there was not a trauma center, a bona fide level 1 trauma center at McGill when I stepped foot through those doors for the first time. And about a week into my fellowship, when I had all to do but to handle the massive inflow of cases, my program director put his arm around me and in his heavy French accent, he says, congratulations. I knew something scary this way was about to come. Like, because he was a ball buster. Congratulations. This sounds like a tag you're it. I says, okay, what's up? What are you congratulating me about? Because I knew I didn't do anything to be congratulated. He says, tag you're it. Okay, all right. Mouth shut, ears open. He says, you're going to start our first trauma center. Now, I had come to McGill Children's Hospital, and my reputation apparently preceded me for having a big, huge trauma experience in Camden, New Jersey, right?
A lot of trauma
and
there.
So it wasn't easy. The hardest thing about starting a trauma center up there was changing the protocols and redirecting people's expectations. So, for instance, there was a 9-year-old who had his arm ripped off right at the humerus head. Rip.
Wow. Just
Just like a lion ripped his arm off. And of course, it must have looked like a scene from Monty Python, the artery squirting, and the kid passes out. They call an ambulance and they say, oh, there's his arm. They put it in a plastic bag. It was in a hotel. They put ice all over it, stuck the bag under the bottom. He gets to the hospital, and the triage people, all they know is that there's a kid that's unconscious. So that's how they triage the kid. So they move the kid into the trauma bay, and they called the neurosurgery fellow who's examining this unconscious kid. He has no idea the kid's left arm is ripped off and in a plastic bag in ice underneath the gurney. And then he's doing the eye exam, he's looking in the kid's ear, and then he sees that there's no arm and there's blood everywhere. So he calls me on the phone, screaming and yelling, and all I hear is melee in the background. And I was at home just putting my fork in my dinner. And I was like, I gotta go. And that's why you can't be more than 10 minutes away. Mm-hmm. So I show up, and this kid's basically exsanguinated. And unlike New Jersey, where social work, if family arrives with a patient in Camden, New Jersey, they usually didn't. They were either ground transported minus the family, or they were heliported or whatever. But up in Montreal, there was the mother and father sitting on a bench 4 feet away from their kid who was about this close to checking out, watching everything I did. Wow. And I was like, holy moly. So I grabbed, at least they had something called an S-mark bandage, which is like a big 3 or 4 inch rubber ace bandage, but it's rubber. and it's meant to put around a limb to basically squeeze the blood out of it or to keep you from bleeding out. And I was running around. I was still in my street clothes. I was like, boom, 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 boom. Stop the bleeding. Now this kid's got like about 2 ounces of blood left in him. And I just screamed at them, put him in steep Trendelenburg, which is what we known as the drag race position. Head down, feet all the way up to get all of the blood that's remaining to his brain and his heart, so that he didn't have an infarct, because your heart can't beat unless there's blood going back to the myocardium. Okay, and I hit the subclavian vein, put a big bore, a cordis in him, and I said, get the lab on the phone. I need some O negative blood, which is blood you can kind of give to everybody without really worrying about the type and cross match. And of course, the lab person on the other phone, she says, we cannot send you. You have to send us a specimen. And I said, I don't think you get it. And she kept arguing with me. And of course, there's a line that came out of my mouth right in front of the parents. And I said, are you effing kidding me? I said, if you don't send me the blood, I'll send this kid down to you in a plastic effing bag. And there I was. I had just defined who I was for everybody in Montreal. I was the crazy guy from Jersey. And guess what? They sent up the blood. And they sent it up, of course, sent it up. And the nurse hung it into what's called a Buretrol. And the Buretrol's got this little tiny needle inside of it to measure slowly the aliquot of like a medicinal drip. And I'm like, oh, mother of God. I had to rip that off, and I put the blood right to the cordis and was squeezing the blood in. Make the long story short, if this is all Greek to you, there are some people out there who know exactly what I'm talking about. We saved the kid's life. And then I got on the phone with the orthopod on call, who happened to be a specialist in limb lengthening. That's very rare. But it was McGill. And McGill is kind of like, Canada's Harvard, right? And I said, I guess we're in luck. I said, we're going to put this kid's arm back on. And he teed off on me. He wanted nothing to do with it. So we chiseled down the splintered bone, and we tied off the major vessels. I stuck a drain in there, and we sewed him up. And 4 days later, that kid who came in basically dead and exsanguinated went home with his mom and dad, minus his left arm. Why did we get on that?
Wow, I don't know. We were talking
Memories
about
of Montreal.
yeah. Well, we told when you first went into the pediatrics, and you said you had all that experience from doing Camden.
That's what training is all about, right?
They say you need 10,000 hours of something to be proficient in it. I would say you have 50,000 hours.
10,000 hours?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on. It depends on what those hours are. If they're hours of, I don't know, doing chart work.
No,
nursing. Right. I mean, there's hours and then there's hours.
No.
I think, that's why when you're going for training places, you want to go to a place that's going to throw everything at you. Montreal Children's in North America was not known for pediatric trauma. Not. And they knew that. And my reputation preceded me, and it was tag, you're it. You're going to start our first trauma center. So the point is, there were no protocols. In Jersey, when you're at a level 1 trauma center, nobody's thinking about where's radiology. Nobody's thinking about who's got the big syringe and all of the blood draw tubes. That's all automatic. Boom, boom, boom. The medical student's doing a femoral stick, or the intern. Boom, the blood is off. Here comes radiology with a PA lateral of the chest, the pelvis, a cross table lateral of the neck to make sure that the cervical spine is still in relative alignment. And then it's airway, breathing, circulation. They had none of that there and didn't know anything about it. And it was on me.
Wow. What was it like leaving there, John, after 2 years of high impact trauma, developing?
You just stunned me with that question.
Wow.
You hit me hard, and I'm going to tell you why.
Absolutely.
Because everybody that is the outgoing fellow had to give like a 1 hour presentation to the entire hospital, teaching staff, to anybody else who wanted to come down to the auditorium. And I did a sappy, tear-jerky slideshow, on an old carousel. You guys don't know what they are, right?
Google it.
There were no computers back then, and I did it to a Kenny G song. What was it like leaving? I mean,
you started the program.
You learn to love or hate some of the people that are on you every single day. The young lady that was in charge of OR booking that we were always on, her name was Heather. We loved Heather. Heather, it's me, it's Gallucci. I got 3 cases, I got to put them on. Or my buddy Winston, who was my senior fellow, or the fellow behind me. We loved Heather, and Heather was pregnant, and Heather went out on maternity leave. And then we got a phone call that Heather was breastfeeding her baby and didn't feel good. And she stood up and handed her newborn baby to her husband and dropped stone cold dead.
Wow.
And we were devastated. Devastated. And so when all of that came to fruition and it was time to go, about a month before I left, I'm getting choked up, I knew I had to start saying goodbye to people because you don't see everybody every day. And then I said, well, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. Why am I saying goodbye? Because next week we could be, eyeballs deep in alligators, in the pediatric ICU. So I waited until the last week. And I think really I only had a chance to see maybe a third of the people I got to know and love. And then all of a sudden, we look like the Beverly Hillbillies with 2 cars, packed, stuff on the roof, heading toward the border. And I miss that place. I miss my office on the 11th floor, where I slept on that desk many a night when it was 25 below Fahrenheit. And I had a big case in the morning, and I was there at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I used to just push everything off the desk and just, it was amazing. Yeah. Wow. And then apparently 2300 Tupper Street, that was the address of the hospital. It's gone. It was very, very old. It was the hospital that I dreamt of as a teenager. It's in my book, in the chapter, Montreal, City of My Heart. And I used to see this very big, monstrous red brick building in dreams. This dream was recurring over and over and over again. And then I had no idea where it was until the night I flew into Montreal and walked to the hospital the day before the interview, so I wasn't going to get fooled about where I was going, because God forbid you show up late. And there it was, the same exact walk that I walked, with the snow collecting on the stone steps. And there was the Montreal Children's, just like I had seen it in my dream at least, I don't know, a dozen times. And that building apparently is gone. They did the old boom, yeah. And they built apparently another big, huge, beautiful center somewhere out, I think, by the 20, by the railroad tracks. And I have nothing but fabulous memories of Montreal and the people that trained me and the patients. I mean, there were good times and bad times, but all in all, I love it and I miss it, and I'm thankful and grateful for it. And not every fellow that trains comes out of their training feeling that way. A lot of them never want to see the people that trained them again. I can't say that.
That's because I guess because it's such a grind, right, John? I mean, the hours are limitless; they're endless.
It's a grind, yeah. And not everybody in a power position over you is a warm, fuzzy person. Yeah. But Not everybody was warm and fuzzy, but I still had a tremendous time. I loved every second of it, the high points and the low points, and I missed them all.
Wow.
I do.
So coming back to Jersey, then, I mean, you were so, I mean, trained in just about everything. You had hands-on experience in all
Right.
kind of situations.
Yeah.
So now these fabulous cases that are in your book, My Life with God.
Yeah.
So now you come to Jersey, and where other people might be a little intimidated, you were kind of like, well, you've been, the odds were stacked against you, against all odds, like
Yeah.
you always say.
Right.
And so now in Jersey, you were ready for against all odds.
I was, because my whole life has been against all odds. So I was ready for it, and there were a couple times when I allowed myself to get roped into cases that probably should have been sent somewhere else, but I did them, and they worked out well. And they always say, don't cut your teeth, at a big scary place alone. And that's exactly what happened to me. I cut my teeth at a big scary place all alone. My senior partner was 79 years old. And instead of her embracing me, and I loved her, God bless her, she's passed on, but she was intimidated by me, And, I says, hey, you want to give me a hand with this big, huge tumor? Well, when are you doing it? Well, the head of oncology demands that I do it on Sunday because he doesn't want to wait until Wednesday, even though the tumor had been there probably for 2 years. And she just looked at me. She goes, "Oh no!" She goes, I'm going to be at some luncheon affair." Okay. So guess who I did the big scary case with? A third-year resident and a medical student. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then, you know what? I would not suggest to the guys and gals out there that are in the first 2 or 3 months of their attendingship to take on cases like that with a third-year resident and a medical student on a weekend. Don't do it. Don't do it. You know something? But I let them bully me. It ain't going to happen again.
John, you have 3 children. Are any of those wonderful 3 children, are they either one taking up a doctor, or are they in medicine?
My oldest, my son, who's 26 and almost a half, is a computer guy.
Okay.
Okay, I'm happy for him. Stay out of the hospital. My second child, who was the captain of our UMass Boston women's collegiate ice hockey team, who still lives with her boyfriend up in Boston, and I love Boston. She's got a new dog. She apparently will be starting osteopathic school in Nevada this August. And I said, well, okay. I've never been to Vegas. Apparently this place that she's going to is not far from Vegas. Now I got my excuse to see Vegas. So, but she's definitely a hands-on physician, every cell in her body. And she's a lot like me. But I said to her, I says, just do everything you can. Do something other than surgery. Because surgery can, if you do surgery right, you're not going to have a life. You're not going to have a life. And that's a whole nother topic for another show. And the third kid is 23. She graduated film school from Ithaca, and she lives in Brooklyn with a bunch of her cohorts, and extremely talented, great artist, great dancer, singer, plays the guitar, the whole deal. So there you go. 1 out of 3. That's okay. I don't look. If none of them wanted to go into medicine, I would
Be
have been
fine,
perfectly fine.
You
with
didn't
that.
push any of them.
Oh
They,
no. And mom is a physician, so they kind of genetically they kind of inherited somebody had to go.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, people that go through a struggle and are extremely successful in their careers, they know not only the high points, but they know the low points too. And the high ones are real high, and the low ones are real low.
Right.
And a lot of times they just don't. I know a gentleman who played in the NFL. He did not want his son to play football.
Right.
So they know the risk and the chance, and
Right.
and they don't push.
that my kids grew up like this. There was a computer in a computer armoire in a big family room that was just off the kitchen. And so the table that we ate day in and day out on was kind of right next to this computer armoire. And so we had one of those programs. It was a screensaver where like the family pictures would just run.
Yeah.
And it would be, oh, look, there's so-and-so on the beach. Oh, look, hey, look, there's so-and-so, going around on the motorcycles, on the boardwalk. Oh, there's mom and dad, at whatever, Christmas time or Hanukkah or something like that. And, oh, there's that big-ass tumor that dad took out. Look at that. Is that colon? No, that's small bowel. My kids knew what small bowel was, what colon was. What's that, Dad? Oh, that's pyloric stenosis. See that thing? I had to split that. Oh, what's that, Dad? Oh, this kid blew his testicles off, with an M80 or something, and I don't know how to put the scrotum back together. So those are the pictures that came up with the family. And we didn't do that on purpose. It just, I think we didn't know how to not have them come up in the feed. So all three kids grew up with, completely graphic intra-op photos, trauma photos, lung removal photos, dead bowel, big tumors, right as they were eating dinner. And so, at least in that sense, they're desensitized to it.
Yeah, right. That's pretty amazing, because as a parent, you can't help but get your work involved with your home life. And if you're telling stories, at the dinner table,
Right.
that's the introduction right there,
Well, the download time was that my wife and I would kind of, unload all of the shit from both ends at dinner time. And we tried to eat dinner as a family as often as we could. Was it as often as the family I came from? No. But, how many people do that?
No.
And they, the old expression, the family that eats together stays together. And we ate together as often as we could. How many times was it? I would say it was at least twice a week. Considering what we did, that's not so bad.
That's not bad at all. Especially with the hours you guys had to keep. We ate the dinner, and you couldn't start dinner until your father sat down.
Right.
Right? Remember those days?
Different days.
Yeah, different days, different times. That's for sure. And then when the kids get involved with activities now, with sports or anything, especially hockey. If anybody out there is a hockey parent,
oh, geez, wow.
Good luck with that, because
luck
we're
with
both
that.
hockey parents, and
Yeah,
that's a selfish journey,
we're
selfless.
taxi cab drivers too, or
Yeah.
Uber drivers. Look, quickly, every Monday night for years, whether I was on call or not, and God knows how I pulled it off, but I did. It had to be divine intervention. I'd get my son to hockey practice all the way up at the Menon Arena, which was, I don't know, a half an hour at
Minimum
least.
30 minutes.
Minimum 30 minutes from my house to Menon Arena. Drop them off there. Sayonara. Don't be late. See you later. Get back and get my daughter to the Bridgewater Sports Arena for her hockey practice. Get the youngest one to Gotta Dance for a double session. And then so I had to get him up there by 5 o'clock. And I went around and around and around and around and around and around like an idiot, being the best dad I could be. And you know when it ended? At 11:30 p.m. That's when it ended. And I was biting my nails down because we were so busy as the division of pediatric and neonatal general and thoracic surgery. You were always called, and sometimes right in the middle of the melee, how am I going to go get my kid up at the Menon Arena if I'm in the OR doing some kid's perf dappy? And I just never really stepped on the grenade like I could have. It's amazing. And it went on for years like that.
Wow. Any hockey parent out there, the journey of a hockey parent is like no other sport.
It's crazy.
Ice times are different.
It's our fault.
It is. The travel times are different. When my son used to play, well, where are you going this weekend? You check the calendar. Oh, we have games in Georgia. So he'd go on the bus, and I'd go down there and follow him.
Yeah.
Stay in a hotel in Georgia. They play 2 games, and he'd come back. Monday was back to work.
Well, we had this conversation with a couple of parents regarding, their sport versus ours.
Oh, there's no comparison.
The scheduling is crazy, but I got to say this. Here's where the hockey stuff got easier compared to baseball or lacrosse. Here's how. No matter what you say, no matter how you want to slice it and dice it, hockey rinks have a schedule as per the hour. And if that rink was rented out for an hour and a half or an hour or 2 hours, especially with practice, when the coach said wrap it up and that door opened up and here comes the Zamboni on the ice, you weren't going to be there watching the coach put them through line drills for another half an hour. You just weren't, because they couldn't, because the rink would say, that's it, you're done. We're on a schedule. We can't have people here until 3 o'clock in the morning. And baseball, softball, look, softball, my kids played softball, my girls, I wasn't freezing my ass off in a rink. I was in the sun, I was on a chair, I was like, but it went on and on and on. Foul ball. Foul tip. Oh, there's a hit. You're out.
Yeah. I'll tell you, as grinding in any sport, as grinding as it was, and lack of sleep as parents that we got, no sleep, I miss those days, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. I miss those days. Life was simple. Your kids were, they weren't. You knew where they were. Yeah. And I was that guy. Cup of coffee. I was at every practice. Yeah. Just sitting there in the background, never over the top yelling at coaches.
Yeah. Well,
except for a couple of occasions.
As usually the only surgeon and physician in the crowd, no matter where I was, whether we were in Canada at a tournament or in Massachusetts or down in Virginia, no matter where we were, I was always ready. If somebody goes down and out on the ice, I'm on that ice, whether the officials and the coaches wanted me on the ice or not. And, that was always a little bit intimidating, because you had your limits. You really had your limits about what you could do. The one thing that I was always sure of is that God forbid, and it's just like trauma is the ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation. If God forbid anybody got sliced and a major vessel got cut on the ice, I was not going to let them die. I'd have to crawl over the glass if I have to and drop onto the ice and stop that bleeding and scream to them, get the ambulance here, line up a trauma center, make those calls now, right? Airway, if I had to, pull somebody's tongue out of the back of their throat because they got hit in the head and now they're seizing, I could handle all of that. Mm-hmm. I saw limbs broken in half, going the other way. Injuries, my daughter, at least 4 concussions in her time. And my son, broken arm, right in half, and a pulmonary hemorrhage. Scary stuff.
Yeah.
Scary stuff. And the number one sport in North America for concussions, it's not soccer, it's not football, it's not baseball, it's ice hockey.
We didn't have a doctor. We weren't lucky enough. We had a veterinarian.
Close enough.
So we asked him, where he worked, and he said, Animal Hospital, West Essex or something. I don't know. That's what it was. So how do we wrap this episode up, John? How do we pull it all together?
Well, maybe I was thinking of that as we were talking, and maybe this is a moment for thanks and praise for the time that we had as parents.
Beautiful.
That we, even though the times were difficult, there were highs and lows, but ultimately, I think we all need to strive to do our best to understand that the people around us are charged with the same challenge. Just do your best. Don't punk out on your family. Don't punk out on your kids. Don't punk out on your spouse. I know that we talked about marriage and divorce on a previous episode, but give thanks that no matter how badly you're running around like a taxi driver with 3 kids with all sorts of activities, and you might be feeling like your spouse laid this one on you. Well, guess what? Maybe you have it laid on you on Monday, but maybe Friday it's her turn. And and so just give thanks and praise that you've got the kids that are healthy enough to play their sports, or they're going to after hours math tutoring, or they're playing the piano or the violin. Just give thanks and praise to the Lord that you're there, you're building memories, you're moving forward together, and God bless you all. Please, please, please know that we here at the Jersey Alchemist, we love you. And what this platform is all about is talking about the challenges of being here in the third dimension and then alchemizing it, bringing it around, thanking God for the opportunity to shed God's love and light into what really is a dark world. So, see you again soon at the Jersey Alchemist.
Great job, John. Thank you very much. If you like what we're doing, people, press the like button down below and subscribe as well. Jersey Alchemist. Peace. Great job.